We are talking offensive line on our position previews, and guys, let's get right to it because they re-signed a guy and extended his contract, and Ryan Khalil, who is the glue of this football team.
I mean, he's the anchor, he's the center of attention for this group, Mike. I mean, Khalil coming off another outstanding year. 2 years ago, he really showed his leadership, became that leader that they needed in the middle when they had a lot of turnover, and then he just stabilized things further this past year when there was a steadiness at the line and pretty much all the positions were established, and we got that group of five that we could count on every week.
Well, you have him at the hub. Let's work our way out. Let's talk guards, because over the years, this has been a position of flux. I think right now you got two good ones, including one who went to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, two really good young ones right now, Mike, for the Carolina Panthers, and Trey Turner and Andrew Norwell. They became fast friends, came from two very different backgrounds, of course. Trey Turner, third-round draft pick out of LSU, Andrew Norwell, undrafted. Both come into Carolina and both immediately impress. And they play a similar style. Physical, mauling offensive linemen who are going to do whatever it takes to move the guy across from them. And we've seen this whole offense really build around these guys. You know, the offensive line is a tone-setting group, Mike, and you know that as well as anybody. And those guys in the middle, Khalil and the two guards flanking him, the physicality that they bring to each and every game has kind of permeated throughout the unit. And as we said, these guys are still so young in their careers. It's going to be exciting to see what they can continue to do as they grow.
And speaking of young, I think Mike Remmers unfairly took a lot of heat after the Super Bowl. And my contention is that pass protection is a team activity, that it takes everybody from front to back. It doesn't rely on one guy in a one-on-one situation, and that's what you saw in the Super Bowl. He's come back, and he's had a great offseason. He is ready to take the next step.
Yeah, you look at how that group was in flux back in 2014, I mentioned, and he was the guy that came in right guard and kind of shored things up there. The Panthers are 22-4 with him as a starter. Does a lot of good things. Again, Coach Rivera has referred back to the Super Bowl. And he doesn't want to point fingers, but he does point fingers away from Mike Remmers. And like you said, say it's kind of a team effort. And then you look on the other side, of course, you got Michael Orr. There were a lot of questions about where his career was headed coming off a tough season in Tennessee back in 2014. And all he did was just do the job every day at left tackle for the Panthers last year.
Well, Max, we know from years past that you have to have a lot of bodies along that offensive line. Who are some of the guys that are going to provide that depth?
Well, we're curious to see where Deron Williams is in his progress right now. Of course, this was the guy the Panthers drafted a couple of years ago in the 4th round, moved up to get him. And right now, you talk about cohesiveness on an offensive line. That's what the Panthers have, all 5 starters back from last year. So where does Darryl fit into that equation? He's going to continue to try to push these guys for playing time. We saw him get in the jumbo package a little bit last year, get a few snaps. But, of course, he's going to want to try to strive to continue to play a little bit more. How much he pushes Remmers, and also a guy who can play some guard in a pinch as well as that swing backup. It's a valuable position for any offensive line, and we'll see how much more ready Darryl is to take on more of the load.
Well, a lot of that will play out at training camp. And, guys, that wraps up the first half of our position reviews. Next up, we'll start taking a look at the defense, looking at defensive tackles right here on Panthers.com.